After a year or two on the market, support for Nintendo's Wii U console famously began to dry up somewhat. Due to a combination of factors like hardware power and sales performance, games from third parties became increasingly hard to come by. One of the system's biggest supporters earlier on, in 2012, had been Ubisoft. Before it was released, they had originally pledged a number of exclusives to the Wii U like Rayman Legends, Rabbids Land, and Zombie U. Although as time went on, the company's enthusiasm for the console faded. They were devoting less resources to it, and some of those Wii U exclusive games were ported to other platforms. Ubisoft hadn't given up on Nintendo's machine entirely though, as noted by their CEO Yves Guillemot in 2014. Speaking to Polygon, he revealed they had an unannounced game for Wii U that was completed and awaiting release. For a time, fans avidly speculated about which game this was, but as the months went by, there was no announcement to speak of. The project's release never came, and its identity was never officially disclosed by Ubisoft. With an investigation that will take us into the heart of the company, I'll be sharing with you a look at this game and why it was finished but never released. Ubisoft's aforementioned Wii U game came to be back in 2011. The industry was entering a transitional period as the next generation of consoles beckoned. Nintendo was first in line for a hardware update, winding down on its hugely successful Wii and preparing to usher in its successor, the Wii U, codenamed Project Cafe. Ubisoft had taken a liking to the console, privately pledging a number of games to it and letting their teams run wild with the possibilities of its centerpiece, the gamepad. With new innovations come new IP. And Ubisoft was looking to their Paris branch for one that would properly take advantage of the new controller. The studio had seen plenty of success on the Wii as they shepherded the Raving Rabbit series and were responsible for Just Dance, placing them high in Ubisoft's estimation. A key figure at Ubisoft Paris throughout all this was Nicholas Normandon, who had been with them since Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc in 2003. When the publisher found itself searching for new games to join their Wii U lineup, Normandon was quick to step up to the plate with ideas of his own. Ubisoft had been looking for projects that would be built around the system's two-screen setup, but up until that point, solid ideas about how to do that were in short supply. One of the only projects going that did plan to fully take advantage of the gamepad was Ubisoft Montpellier's first-person shooter Killer Freaks from Outer Space, which used gyro aiming and off-TV play. Normandon's concept took a very different approach from Ubisoft's other Wii U projects. It was a multiplayer game based around social interaction with the gamepad at its core. Generally speaking, the idea was that it would be a series of games about how well you know the people you're playing with and what you secretly think of one another. Players would discreetly answer questions about each other on the gamepad's touchscreen. Eventually, the game would reveal the results of those answers in a surprising or humorous way on the TV. Its name was Know Your Friends. It was pitched to Ubisoft via an interactive slideshow presentation as opposed to a Wii U prototype. They were receptive to the ideas, however, and the project was quickly greenlit. It was planned to be a low-budget affair developed by Ubisoft Paris with a short production schedule. Nicholas Normandon was placed in charge of it. Early on in its lifespan, the Paris studio began to deliberate over which engine the game would run on. They were able to narrow it down to a number one choice, the Opiod Framework. They wanted the game to have a simple, approachable art style, and it was thought that hand-drawn art brought to life by UbiArt was the right way to go. At the time, UbiArt itself was still under development. It was being made by a relatively small team at Ubisoft Montpellier and would be showcased for the first time in Rayman Origins. It was garnering praise from all over Ubisoft, and it was expected that more games would soon take advantage of it. The Know Your Friends team at Ubi Paris hoped to be among the first to work with it and ask the Montpellier officers for access to it. However, according to former Ubisoft workers, this request was swiftly denied. They claim that during this time, some of Ubisoft's different branches had become intensely competitive with one another. The Montpellier studio had apparently grown protective of the new technology and therefore forbid the Know Your Friends developers from using it. This was despite the fact that Ubisoft Paris was actually already working with UbiArt. Just one floor below the Know Your Friends team, another group of people was supplementing the development of Montpellier's pet project, Rayman Origins. With the UbiArt framework off limits to them, the team had to rethink their art direction for the game. They soon arrived at the idea of a cutout art style, reminiscent of early South Park episodes. Almost everything on screen used cut-up pieces of real-life photography thrown together like a scrapbook, and character animations were directly inspired by the Muppets. As production got underway, the developers were able to further experiment with the capabilities of the gamepad. The title would join the ultimately short list of games to make use of its front-facing camera. Every time a new player joined the game, they could create an in-game avatar for themselves, and it would be saved as a passport for future use. The player would capture a picture of their face using the gamepad's camera, which would then be mapped onto a character in the game to represent them. It worked similar to Nintendo's Mii's in a sense, and the game would automatically fit your character into a variety of comical outfits and quirky animations. Every aspect of the game was designed to play upon social dynamics in interesting and usually humorous ways. Some questions would intentionally embarrass players, others would reveal more about their personalities and habits. Know Your Friends wasn't just about having prior knowledge of your friends, but also learning more about them as you played. In some of the modes, players would answer questions about themselves on the gamepad, such as their opinions on other people and their habits, before the others would have to correctly identify their chosen answers. While some of these questions were fairly friendly, occasionally the game might introduce something more probing and potentially awkward, like asking players for their honest opinions on goods manufactured under poor working conditions, or if they've ever accidentally hit an animal while driving. The next player would then have to guess their answer, and at the end of each round the game would reveal how well you were in sync with one another. The game included a wide variety of minigame formats and options to cater for different social situations. Players could opt for more family-friendly content, or an option for close friends that would delve into more risque topics like alcohol consumption and sex. There were plans to possibly add more adult subjects like politics via DLC packs had the game released. Behind closed doors at Ubisoft, Know Your Friends enjoyed a warm reception, say former employees. Multiple playtests were conducted among staff outside the development team, including some Ubisoft higher-ups, to positive results. They found that the minigames had a quirky charm and humour that clicked with those that tried them. Soon the project was being hyped up internally as potentially being the company's next big thing. An employee from the development team claimed that Ubisoft's management was very excited about its prospects and believed it could even go on to rival the success of Just Dance. As a game made on a small budget, Know Your Friends would not have been a full-price title. Ubisoft believed that hitting that sweet spot in price, along with the right marketing approach, could result in a hit among casual players. According to Ubisoft sources, a large chunk of the game was done before the Wii U was even on sale. The vast majority of production on the title was apparently finished by the end of 2012. Further work took place throughout 2013, but one former artist suggests that had Ubisoft wanted to, they could have released it as early as the Wii U's launch in November 2012. Developers described the end of work on Know Your Friends as fairly unceremonious. There was no launch party to mark the milestone, since Ubisoft had yet to lay out their plans for how and when to release it. Convinced of its potential, the higher-ups wanted to wait and drop the game at a more optimal time for sales. At the Wii U's launch, Ubisoft was already focused on promoting Zombie U, a horror shooter built around the system's two-screen gameplay. This was another Wii U exclusive game like Know Your Friends that Ubisoft believed would perform well and possibly mark the start of a new series. Unfortunately for them, the optimistic internal sales forecasts for Zombie U weren't realised. The game flopped, much to Ubisoft's dismay. The whole ordeal left the company cautious of Nintendo's new machine. When sales didn't sufficiently pick up after the 2012 holiday period, they began revising their support for it. Rayman Legends was originally intended to be a Wii U exclusive launch game too, before it was pushed back to February 2013 to make further improvements. Fans were eagerly awaiting its release when less than 3 weeks before launch, Ubisoft announced they were delaying it a further 7 months. The game would no longer be exclusive to Wii U, now arriving on Xbox 360 and PS3 as well. In the middle of all this was Know Your Friends, a game now stuck in a post-production limbo state. As console sales fell in early 2013, Ubisoft continued losing confidence in Wii U. They had grown skeptical of its viability as a platform and their ability to sell games on it. Consequently, the decision was made to indefinitely postpone the release of Know Your Friends until the situation improved. Ubisoft hoped that Nintendo could work to drive up hardware sales themselves, and that the platform might become more profitable for them in the long term. The developers that worked on Know Your Friends were told that its release was on hold, but it was just a matter of time before Ubisoft would start rolling it out. As the months went by, however, it became apparent to its creators that time was possibly never coming. Some people from the team are said to have campaigned for its release inside Ubisoft in the years after it was finished, although, according to a former artist, Ubisoft's marketing division prevented it from moving forward. Sources from the company claimed that the marketing department was given autonomy from the Paris studio to determine when and if to release it. They had originally intended to launch it in either 2013 or 14, but when their Wii U games failed to meet expectations, all of that was cast into uncertainty. Ubisoft's marketing was left to decide what to do with it, and eventually chose against releasing it. They didn't think that the console had been able to tap into the broader mainstream that the Wii did, and therefore didn't think there was an audience on it for Know Your Friends. They believed that reaching the audience the game was intended for would have been a costly task, including a TV ad campaign. Instead of risking another Wii U failure, the funds that would have been spent marketing it were used to push other games. As it became clear the Wii U game would never officially see the light of day, Ubisoft Paris briefly attempted to get it released on other platforms. They suggested a downloadable version on the PSN store, as well as ports for iOS and Android. The mobile version made the most progress, ex-developers say, receiving a playable prototype before Ubisoft shot down the possibility of developing it into a full game. After a lengthy internal battle over the fate of Know Your Friends, this was when any lingering hope for it was finally extinguished. Wii U sales never picked up to Ubisoft's liking, and thus their stance on the project remained unchanged. Know Your Friends was never officially announced, despite being completely finished and even receiving a rating from the ESRB. The vast majority of the team from Know Your Friends at Ubi Paris went on to co-develop the Nintendo Switch exclusive Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle. That game was produced by Xavier Manzanares, the producer of Know Your Friends. Nicholas Normandon, on the other hand, joined Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands as a senior programmer. For more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe. If you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, do consider supporting me on Patreon like these kind people did. To my patrons, this video would not have been possible without you, so I want to thank you all for your support. I've been Liam, and I hope you've enjoyed this video.